Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lost Coast podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us. His name is Corey Harlock, and he is the creator of KeyHire Solutions. And he's going to tell us a little bit about himself today and how he's gotten to where he is. Welcome to the show, Corey.
Hey, thanks for having me, Corey. It's going to be confusing. Two Corys. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it does not happen very often. But anyways, Corey, tell us a little bit about, how you got started and how you got to where you're at with your company.
Yeah, the short story is I'm a recovering hospitality guy. I used to work in kind of boutique hotels, fine dining, all that good stuff. I just got too old for it. It's a young person's game. And so I transitioned out of that, and I thought, well, the three skills I really brought to the table were recruiting, sales, and marketing. So I reached out to my network and said, hey, does anyone know anyone I should be having a coffee with so I can learn more about these areas? And someone introduced me to a recruiting firm, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. So it was way back when, long time ago. And I remember sitting down, the guy's name was Bob Scott, and I told him about my background, and he kind of pointed to this thing on his brochure, and he's like, we do hospitality recruiting here. And I said, well, that sounds pretty good. And he said, yeah, none of us understand anything about hospitality. We need someone to help build that out. And I said, okay, well, let's give it a shot. So we did. And we got a good level of success with it. And then I ended up partnering with the guy who owned the company, and we created our own hospitality brand. And then I went out on my own, bought him out, and did my own thing. And then my wife got an opportunity to move down to Houston. So I locked the door on that, and we came down. And I joined another agency firm down here for the first 2 years I was here, which was great because I got to meet a lot of people. But so you look back, and I think I maybe did 6 to 8 years in the agency world. And I never felt at home in that industry. It always felt a little, I knew I could do more to help the business owners, but the business is set up to be so adversarial at times that it's hard to, no one believes you're being genuine. They always kind of think you're looking to find an extra way to charge them or bill them. And so I got involved with a Vistage group when I first got to Houston, and I had this idea for KeyHire. It wasn't called KeyHire at that time. But I had an idea, and the people in my group helped me flush it out. But the reality is, the reason I built KeyHire is small business owners work hard. They drive our economy. No one's looking at them to help them or give them any advantage because they don't think they can afford the expensive services, all that stuff. And the reality is, I wanted to create a business that would enable business owners and their employees and their employees' families to do better at work, at home, and within the community. That's what it's all about. And so if I was able to leverage my knowledge and the skills that I had acquired and create a program and a service that was targeted at small business owners, that was all encompassing around how to drive them and help them get wherever they wanted to go. Whether it's, I'm happy with my revenue, I just want to be able to go home and have dinner with my family 3 nights a week, or I want to take a long weekend or go away for a week and not have the building burned down, or I want to 3x my business, or I want to 10x it and sell it. Whatever it is, whatever that goal is for them, I think we're positioned to help them. So was that accurate? Was that enough for you?
Yeah, no, that's great. Let me ask you a question here then. So you get somebody comes to you and they want that, what's kind of the process they're going to go through then? Like, let's just say, right, for me, example, I'm tired of putting in the 14, 16-hour days, right? I want to be able to tone it back. I want to get 12-hour days so I have some more time to be with family. Or what's the process? How are you gonna? I'm going to have to say a lot of business owners don't know what they want. They just know they need help. So you got to be able to flush that out. So how are you working with them in those ways?
Right. So I want to address the biggest thing you said was a lot of business owners don't know where they're at. Yeah. And we've done a lot of work and we have identified what we call the key owner stages. And it's kind of the 5 phases a business owner kind of goes through personally, not their business. It's not like a growing business and then, you know, a leadership crisis. That's not it. We want to understand where they are in their business so we can help them. And so when we looked at it, you know, what we came up with was first the overwhelmed business owner. And that's the business owner who has done one of 3 things. You know, when you start a business, if you're not VC backed, you start a business, and I've said this 1,000 times, you hire your neighbor, you hire your neighbor's cousin, you hire your in-laws, whatever you have to do to get people inside the business that are all focused on success. And everyone does everything. And the critical point in that business comes when the demands of the business or service or product become greater than the ability of those bootstrappers and the team you put together in the beginning. That's the inflection point where we really show up. But the overwhelmed business owner is a victim of 3 things. Either one, they've done a great job and the business is way more successful than they ever dreamed, and all they can do is work longer and work harder. And they're not creating better process or procedure. Or they're struggling and that business owner's carrying that burden of, these people are relying on me to put food on the table. And so how can I drive my business? So it's not performing where they want it to be, but they have something. Or we've seen a lot with 2nd generation owners where someone who's worked in that business finally gets the opportunity to take it over. They maybe gone to business school, they have all these ideas, and they want to push this business forward, but they battle those legacy employees and the legacy process and procedures that, hey, this is how we do it here. We don't do it like that, right? So and that overwhelmed business owner, if you can picture it, it's like someone standing looking at their car and all 4 tires have fallen off it. And they're kind of scratching their head thinking, I have no idea where to even start to fix this thing. Like, I'm in a rut. The wheels have fallen off. We're just running around with our hair on fire. And often their mindset is, if I can just make that one good hire, my life will change. But that's not how it works. It's a succession of right hires that will change your life. But that one right hire might take a little pressure out of the tire, right? Give you a little more flexibility. And then from the overwhelmed business owner, we go into what we call the unsure business owner. And if we use the car analogy, these guys have wobbly wheels. They're going down the road and it's still a little bumpy. They know they have a problem. They kind of know where the problem is, but they don't know how to go about fixing it. They can't really clearly identify it's a constraint here, or this person maybe is in over their head, or we need better process, because we don't understand even what a better process might look like at that point. And then we shift into what we call the curious business owner, and we call those the squeaky wheels. They can point to that wheel and say, that wheel is squeaking. That's the problem. They know where it is, but they need advice on how to fix that problem. What are my options? How can I fix my squeaky wheel? Then we move into a growing business owner. And in that case, you know, we're putting high performance wheels on their car because they're moving forward. So now we just need to be able to give them the ability to scale up and grow and keep their momentum. And that's by adding capacity and experience into that business. And then the final kind of graduating phase is the strategic business owner. And they're real clear on what we need. I need this, just fill some spots for me here, because you know, we're adding wheels to the machine, right? We're just trucking down the road and we got momentum, and we just need to plug some holes as we go to make sure we can keep the momentum. So that's kind of how we assess who we're dealing with, and what each of those people needs something different. And so we want to look at that. But then so to talk about the process, our process is we go in and first we want to do an assessment on the business, because oftentimes what a business owner thinks they need to fix the problem, and if I go back to, if I could just make that one great hire, my life would be better. So they try to package everything into one person that they think can save the day. And our job oftentimes is to go in and say, that person doesn't exist, and that's not what you need. For example, I've told this story lots, but worked with one person who said, I need a GM. And after we did our assessment, we said, GM's the wrong person. You need a director of operations. You got problems in your operations. You need someone who has the experience, the capacity, the training to level up your operation, because you're at a breaking point here. And if you keep pumping sales into this thing, something's going to happen. You're going to get an injury at work. You're trucking around there with forklifts and you don't have a lot of safety procedures. Your facility is not leaned out, so people are moving back and forth unnecessarily while those forklifts are going back and forth. Your people are redlined, they're working maximum hours. You know, you might get a couple of people that quit, and now you're really behind the 8 ball. So that what you need isn't a GM. I know you think in your mind that's the home run, but it's not. We need to hit 4 singles here to get you at home having dinner with the family. And the first base hit we need is a director of operations.
Yeah.
So we make that assessment, have a conversation with the business owner, and we kind of decide, is this something you want to do? And if it is, then we dig in and we create our action plan. And that action plan has a business overview. What are the goals and aspirations of the owner for personal, the business, the department we might be working in? Want to understand, you know, where they fit in the landscape. Then we'll, oftentimes it's going to be a brand new role in the business. So we'll kind of flush out what are the key elements of that role. We build what we call our avatar, which is a 2-dimensional snapshot of the perfect person. And it's got 3 categories: experience, culture, and capacity. And we want to understand what matches we need in all 3 areas, all of those 3 areas. So they'll come into the business and hit the ground running and have almost immediate impact. Then we'll do comp analysis for them and say, because oftentimes business owners are used to bargain hunting, and you can't blame them, but we can be the people that push them to say, let's spend a little more here and explain why there's going to be some ROI there and why it's going to benefit you. The pushback we often get is, look, I paid big money for someone before and they didn't work out. And they have, but the problem is they didn't have a defined process. They didn't clearly define that role. They were hiring maybe for their current needs instead of their future needs, which are the 3 biggest mistakes people make when they do DIY hiring. So we want to, if you notice, the avatar is experience, culture, capacity. All 3 of those things we want to understand what we're hiring for. One of our favorite expressions is, we're not hiring someone to run your $10 a year business. We're hiring someone to run your $50 million a year business, currently doing 10. And if a business owner can understand that shift in mindset, that's where we really start to get some traction with them. So we'll do the comp analysis, we'll do the avatar, we'll do the company overview, and then we go in and we'll create a custom hiring plan for that company, for that role. Then we execute it. We come in and we become your fractional director of talent, and we run the process, because we want them to run their business. Let us do all the heavy lifting. Let us do all the hard work. We're really good at it. And we'll tap you on the shoulder and ask you for time when we think we have the person that you're going to want to hire.
So, I mean, you got to run into some of these. I mean, I deal with a lot of business owners myself in the financial space. How do I say this without making somebody that I've talked to upset? But they get very narrow-minded and they're not open to any suggestions. Just like you said, you talk to somebody, they say, oh, I paid big money for somebody before, and you're asking them to pay money again.
Yep.
You know, and you got to differentiate yourself from one to the other. I mean, I find it, even the business owners' minds are so locked down sometimes, and they just can't get out of their own simple way. Where really they actually have the employee there that can do it. They just won't let them, you know, have that person do what they need to do. They're just, the oversight is, I guess, too close to home, because they won't change their ways.
Corey, I hear exactly what you're saying. And you run into those, and sometimes you can't help them. We just agree to say, and maybe this isn't the right match. They have to, for us to be effective, and I'm sure for you as well, the business owner has to be at a point where they know they need some help, and they have to have the humility to be able to say, I don't know the answer to this and let's have a conversation about it. We never come in and say it's our way or the highway, but essentially we say, if we're going to work together, we're going to run our program because my program works. Your program has proven not to work and my program has proven to work. So I just want you to be successful. And we've spent 8 years fine tuning this program that we run. And we have a 90% success rate, which is better than most business owners have. So we always want to make sure we're working together and we're partnering. But yeah, you touched on something. And in my experience, again, I never ever want to speak badly about business owners because they work their asses off, right? Like they're out there doing the best they can. And sometimes they get into this cycle of what I call addicted to chaos.
Yep.
They get so addicted to the grind and how hard it is to produce their product or service. They forget that their product or service has value all on its own. And if you give them a resource to fix that problem or make life easier, oftentimes they will, for no reason, just say, yeah, that doesn't work here. It has to be done this way. It has to be done this way. But that's because they've been doing it that way and they've had success doing it that way and they're making money doing it that way. But they also have hit a ceiling doing it that way. And they're going to play this 10% growth, 15% loss, 10% growth, 5% loss, 20% growth. They're going to play that roller coaster game versus that hockey stick game by saying, yeah, I think this process or this procedure is maxed out. It's run its course. It's not scalable. Help me understand how I can create a new process or change this as painlessly as possible that will get me where I want to go. And I think a lot of times it's either a trust issue or it's fear-based, because if we change it, maybe it won't work. Or it's a trust-based because no one knows this business like me. And that's a catch-22, because if no one knows your business like you, A, you'll never sell that business because there's nothing to sell. And B, you'll never get to go home and have dinner with the family because you don't trust anyone to do their jobs because they don't know it as well as you. So I understand it. And I think it's part of the arc, right? It's part of that small business arc. And I think every business owner, to a degree, goes through what you described. Some more severe and some less severe than others. But eventually something needs to happen where there's a break in that pattern of thinking, or someone sits you down and can say, logically explain, here's how we can change this, and then earn their trust, which is always the biggest thing, to go in and make what could potentially be a really big change in their business. This is a scary deal.
Yeah. What is your ideal client, your ideal business work with? I mean, I'm talking like ideal as you can narrow it down,
Yeah.
Is it being from a restaurant? Is it, manufacturing? What's the ideal piece where it's really easy for you to go step into that market and really make some major changes for that business?
And I'm going to twist this a bit because we deal in a lot of markets. Our process allows us to work. I mean, we work with SaaS companies, we're working with law firms, we're working with manufacturing, we're working with warehouse distribution. The process works. For us, it's business, privately held business, $5 to $25 million in gross revenue, and an owner who is humble, an owner who is ready for change, ready to be helped, an owner who, and I like stubborn people. I don't mind a stubborn owner, but if they're open to having a conversation and thinking about doing things differently, because we're going to push them. We take people out of their comfort zone because we have to get their business moving where they want it to go. So they have to be trusting. You know, if you interview a lot of their staff and they're micromanaged and it's a hostile environment, it's probably not an ideal company for us to work for. But if it's someone who really cares about their business, cares about their people, has that humility to say, man, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. I know we got something great here. I just can't push it over the hump right now. Or I know I have good people, but for some reason, they're not delivering like they used to, or whatever it might be. Those are the people we really look for.
Okay. Do you have an example of a company, that you've worked with where you've taken from, A to Z here?
I do, yeah.
Example.
So we're really fortunate. I think it's we're touching on 75% of the people we work with repeat. And we work with our clients for oftentimes a year at a time, a year engagement at a time. And the second company that ever signed an agreement with me 8 years ago is still a client today. They're on that board behind you. And when I started working with them, they weren't overwhelmed, but they were at the unsure stage. And it's funny, when I presented the key owner stages to them, because it's a fairly new development, he read them over and he goes, "That's where we used to be." And he pointed right at unsure. And I'm like, yeah, I would agree with that, And they are they are bordering on strategic, but they're definitely in the growing phase now. And what's important to understand, and another thing we do, is you grow in iterations. So an important thing for us to do is, let's look at your organizational chart as it sits today and talk about where you want to go. And then how does your org chart need to change? What are the steps to get to that end result? And how do those changes, we're going to put a new leader into your business. So the company I'm talking about, the first person we ever put in there was a director of operations. And he came in and he was a heavy hitter. He stayed there for 3 years and he put them on the track to, they are going to do 4X where they were 7 years ago this year. And the owner is happier than can be. He's one of my favorite people. His first name is Daryl. But we put this director of ops in there, and I had to sit him down and say, this is how they fit into your organization. This is how your role needs to change. You can't be going to the supervisors in the shop and asking what's up and telling them to make changes. We need to create a span of control, a communication ladder. You need to honor that. You need to trust them. And he did. It was the first kind of big time hire they had ever had there. And this guy came in, and then we hired a manager under him. And then when he left, he had done such a great job training that manager. That manager got promoted to director and is now the VP of operations.
Oh.
So, and they just tick along. Like, they are currently looking at new lines, new technology. They have such a cool company, but they have the cash flow, and they have the culture, and they have the leadership they're willing to take a swing. If you can make the case, Daryl's like, let's give it a try. Let's dig in, see if it works. So it's a fun company, but we've seen them grow so much, and it's amazing. I asked Daryl one time, I said, since we've been working together, have you changed your definition of what a good leader looks like in your company? And he was like, oh, hell yeah. It's, the people that I started with are not anything, and no fault of theirs. It's just the growth of the business. Yeah. So the people I have now are just, I never imagined I'd have people like this in my business. It's incredible.
Yeah, hire to your weakness. That's kind of what we always tell each other,
Yeah, you don't want to hire a bunch of people with the same set of skills. It gets pretty boring, and a part of your business is going to get neglected.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's awesome, Corey. The listeners are grabbing. What's the best way, if someone's listening to this episode here, what's the best way for them to reach out to you so they can, maybe get a little chat with you and see if you guys can do some business together?
Well, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. Just look at Corey Harlock, or you can find my page, KeyHire Solutions, or you can go to keyhire.solutions. That's our website. It's under construction right now as we're speaking, but we have a free consultation on there as well. So we're a help first organization. So if someone wants to schedule time and just talk about a problem they have in their business, I'm happy to tell them how to work through that. They like what I have to say, and they think, hey, I mean, this might be a great company to work for, and they might be able to help us. We're happy to talk about that too. But those would be the two ways: keyhire.solutions and through LinkedIn at Corey Harlock at LinkedIn. I might be the only Corey Harlock on LinkedIn, I think.
Yep. Probably there's not very many Corys. Yeah.
And there's not very many Harlocks, oddly enough. It sounds like a common name, but there's not a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great, Corey. Is there something you would like these listeners to know before we kind of close this out today?
Oh, man, that's a deep question. I didn't know you were going to ask me that. I mean,
I know I got to get deep on you every now and then, just so you make you think a little bit.
I mean, if you're a small business owner, the message is it's hard, and I get it. And I know most small business owners are out there doing the best they can, and it's not very often they get a chance to look up and step away and do a real fair assessment of where they are and what they need. And oftentimes you fall into that category of, I don't know what I don't know. I know I got a problem, but I don't know how to fix it. And there are some good people out there just trying to help small businesses. And I like to think I'm one of them, with KeyHire. And we understand the heaviness of being a small business owner. Like, having that responsibility of knowing your people are relying on you is a real deal. It's a big thing. And missing family dinners because you're working because you have to, that's a big thing too. Not being able to get away. It doesn't have to be like that, and we can help you fix it, but you got to be committed to the journey, because it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen in 4 weeks. It's going to happen in steps. Like I said, you need 4 singles to score a run, and we're just going to we'll help you chip away at it. And then one day, I have a client now. I'm just going into my 2nd year with him, and he's there. It took us a year to get there, but he wants to be crazy and busy, but he doesn't need to be anymore. And so it just kind of happens, right? A little pressure comes out of the tire every now and again, and eventually you turn around and you're thinking, wow, I'm having dinner with the family on a pretty regular basis, and the business is going really well. And you're entitled to that. You're allowed to have that work-life balance. You just need to put the plan together.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Corey, for coming on the show. Really appreciate you coming on. So to our listeners out there, if you own a business and you are looking at your business from the outside going, what can I change? What can I do? Give Corey a call. And I don't mean Corey, me. You can call me too, and I'll hook you up with Corey Harlock, though.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's out there. It's ready for you guys out there, you business owners. Corey's here to help. Great guy. So please don't be afraid to give him a call. Like he said, he's willing to chat with you and see what you guys got going, and maybe you guys can work together. So with that being said, this is the Lost Coast Podcast. We're going to be signing off, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.